My name is Peter Rickus. I'm the Regional Program Coordinator for the Southwest region of the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training, and Skills Development. Yes, so they have added some extra work for us with the addition of immigration to our name. For all the purposes here, I'm going to call it the Ministry of Labor because it's just too many words. I've been an inspector with the ministry for about 5 years, and I've been a regional program coordinator for about a year. Prior to that, I worked for the Ministry of Transportation in a few different offices up in North Bay. And all my career traces back through construction work. And that's the program of the ministry that I currently operate out of, the Construction Health and Safety Program. So the ministry has multiple different programs: industrial, mining, healthcare, and construction. And of course, my opinion is construction is the most fun. That's because of my history in it. So I have a presentation prepared for you today. Mainly it is an occupational health and safety update. So I know that the ministry likes to attend these conferences, and I don't think we've done so since 2019. So there's a lot of legislative changes. There's a lot of changes within the ministry structure. So this is a good opportunity to update you on some of those changes, where things are going, and how we're going to get there. The ministry, in its mandate currently, works to eliminate workplace fatalities, as we all know, workplace injuries and illnesses, through not just enforcement, but prevention as well. We have our system partners, which I'll talk a little bit more about as we move forward, which include WSIB and the Health and Safety Associations. And we develop and implement health and safety awareness and training programs. We inspect high-risk workplaces to ensure compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the Employment Standards Act. We investigate employment standards complaints. We enforce employment standards such as hours of work, vacation pay, minimum wage. And we educate employers and employees about their rights and obligations under the law. The ministry also provides funding to third-party organizations through a number of grant programs. And it provides a neutral collective agreement, conciliation, and mediation program to help unions and employers come to agreement. We often appoint arbitrators to resolve workplace grievances and labor disputes. And we deliver and promote employment and training services to people across the provinces. So WSIB, a major organization in the occupational health and safety landscape, WSIB is an independent agency of the ministry, and it's entirely funded by Ontario businesses. The Workplace Safety and Insurance Board is one of the largest insurance organizations in North America, and it covers over 5 million people in more than 300,000 workplaces across Ontario. The Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, in general, provides wage loss benefits and medical coverage, no-fault collective liability insurance, support to help people get back to work, access to industry-specific health and safety information. It also provides funding to the health and safety system partners, including the ministry's health and safety activities. And it develops health and safety programs for Ontario employers. Other members of the occupational health and safety landscape include the health and safety associations. So these health and safety associations use funding provided by Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, which flows through the ministry to these health and safety associations. Each association is an independent, not-for-profit corporation. They're governed by a board of directors, and they deliver frontline prevention programs on behalf of the ministry, providing services and information directly to employers and workers. They also provide information to joint health and safety committees, medical practitioners, and unions. Now, they provide a multitude of services. They deliver training and create tools that can be used in many different workplaces in Ontario. They consult and provide clinical services. They support industry-specific programs such as mine rescue training. And what we see here are 4 of the 6 health and safety associations. So these four are sector-based. We can see that Infrastructure Health and Safety Association, IHSA, serves construction projects, electrical and utilities work, aggregates, natural gas, and ready-mix concrete and transportation. Workplace Safety North serves all over the province the forestry, mining, smelter, refinery, paper, printing, and converting sectors, as well as businesses in Northern Ontario. Workplace Safety and Prevention Services serves the agricultural sector, the manufacturing sector, and the service sector. The Public Services Health and Safety Association serves hospitals, nursing and retirement homes, residential and community care, universities, colleges, school boards, libraries, museums, municipalities, the provincial government and its agencies, the police, fire, and paramedics, as well as First Nations. There are two more health and safety system partners that work for people in the province of Ontario. The first is the Occupational Health Clinic for Ontario's workers. In addition to having the best acronym in government, OCOW, it also provides occupational disease information and clinical services, including medical diagnostic services. Now, these two system partners are not sector specific. Any person in Ontario can reach out to them irrespective of the sector you work in. And the last health and safety system partner is the Workers' Health and Safety Centre. Now, the Workers' Health and Safety Centre is Ontario's designated health and safety training centre, and it provides training for workers, supervisors, health and safety representatives, joint health and safety committees, and employers. So every part of the workplace parties identified within the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Workers' Health and Safety Centre is there to support them. So we'll move on and we'll look at what's new in Ontario. So we've had obviously quite a few changes to legislation, to our program since 2019. The first is the establishment of Skilled Trades Ontario. Skilled Trades Ontario is a newly launched Crown agency built to improve tradesperson training and simplify the services for tradespeople. The new agency promotes and markets the trades. It develops the latest training and curriculum standards and provides a user-friendly experience for tradespeople looking at their accreditations. The Skilled Trades Ontario website also hosts the public register, an important database with which any person can gain access to confirm that a skilled trades professional or apprentice can actually legally do the compulsory work that they're required to do. It's a register in which anyone can look up a skilled trade who is compulsory in the legislation and just confirm that they are certified. Also in vein with the trades, Ontario's working currently on a program called Level Up. Now, Level Up is a career fair series. It's a series of dynamic multi-day career fairs highlighting the 144 different skilled trades. And at these career fairs, students in grades 7 to 12 have the opportunity to learn about the trades through interactive exhibitions. They get to hear directly from local employers about their vocational options. Based on the reception of these trades fairs, I would presume that this is something that is going to continue in the future, where we will find opportunities to bring tradespeople into schools or exhibitions where we'll find young people entering the trades in the future. Recently, Ontario invested in mental health in Northern Ontario. The government gave $1.7 million to support Workplace Safety North, one of those health and safety associations I mentioned earlier, in the development and delivering of mental health training and resources specifically for the mining and forestry workers in Northern Ontario. Now, this funding follows approximately $8 million, which the province invested last year to bolster Workplace Safety North's mine rescue program. Now, this mine rescue program is the program which successfully coordinated the rescue of the 39 miners stuck underground in Sudbury in September of last year. One of the big legislative changes that came about this year is the Working for Workers Act. Now, we call this Bill 88 in the industry, and it received royal assent in April of this year. This bill is another overhaul of the occupational health and safety legislation landscape. One of the drivers for it is to establish foundational rights and protections for people in the digital platform worker trade. Now, digital platform workers are people who provide rideshare services, delivery services, or courier services. This inclusion of them in the occupational health and safety legislation causes a guarantee of them receiving minimum wage, protection of their tips, allows them to resolve disputes in Ontario, and gives them protection from reprisals. The Working for Workers Act also seeks to tackle Ontario's current labor shortage. And one of the ways it does that is by ensuring that out-of-province workers can register in their regulated profession within 30 days. The aim being to help these workers become registered faster so they can find work in their field and contribute to Ontario's economic growth in a more timely manner. Working for Workers also establishes greater transparency and addresses privacy concerns for workers by mandating that larger employers establish and share policies with their employees on how they are monitoring their electronic devices, such as their computers, their cell phones, and their GPS systems. It enhances worker protections and ensures that employers are held responsible for not complying with health and safety laws by increasing the maximum fines for operators and directors of businesses that fail to provide a safe work environment. Now, that is my favorite part of the changes, given that I've worked in enforcement for a while. Any increase to the fines, in my eyes, is a good move. So the fines as of July 1st went up. So now a penalty under the provisions of the Occupational Health and Safety Act was increased from $100,000 to $1.5 million for directors and officers of corporations. For individuals, up to $500,000. This legislation also adds a list of aggravating factors that the courts must consider when viewing sentencing for a conviction. So it allows further leeway for the courts to determine the severity of an incident and the contributing factors therein. It also adds an authority for courts to essentially on conviction enter an order as seen in the regulations onto the defendant. So in a similar situation where you might find an inspector comes to a construction project and issues an order, well, now a court can also do so on conviction of a defendant. The last thing I want to talk about is Prevention Works. I have that on my next slide. So Prevention Works is not so much an organization, but a strategy. It's a 5-year strategy that started being implemented in 2021. And what it does is it sets the vision for occupational health and safety in Ontario for the next 5 years. It contains 4 simple strategic objectives that the government believes will further these principles. The first objective is for, in the enforcement vein, using evidence-based data to develop risk-based prevention programs. Now, what does that really mean? What it means is we need to become better analysts to look at the source and root causes of the incidents that we see so that we are not doing so much reaction and we are being a lot more proactive in our enforcement efforts. Objective number 2 is helping workplaces comply with the health and safety standards, finding new ways to help businesses be compliant. And ultimately, we know that compliance with the legislation does result in better overall safety for the workplace. Objective number 3 is for the workplaces that go above and beyond the bare minimum. We had a director recently describe compliance perspectives amongst our clientele in 3 different ways. There were the watch me's. So the watch me's are the people that say, oh, there's new legislation, just stand back, inspector, and watch me comply with this. I'm ready to go, and we're ready to work towards it. Then we have the show me's, right? The show me's are the ones that are like, oh, okay, new legislation, this is confusing. I'm happy to do it, but could you show me how, or point me to someone who can help me? And then the third perspective on compliance amongst our clients are the make me's. They're the ones that say, new legislation, I'm not gonna do it. You're gonna have to order me to do it, or fine me, or take me to court. Now, those make me's make up the minority of our overall clientele, but they probably make up the majority of the work that we do. And that's to say that the watch me's and the show me's should also benefit from enforcement as well. So in order to do that, the third objective here is to essentially reward those workplaces that go above and beyond. One of the ways they do that, back in 2019, the Chief Prevention Officer launched a program called Supporting Ontario's Safe Employers. So it's an incentive program that helps employers reduce injuries and illnesses by implementing an occupational health and safety management system. Once they have their management system up and running and up to a certain standard, they're incentivized in some of their contributions. The fourth objective is to help Ontario's small businesses. So small businesses are prevalent in Ontario, and we're quite happy for that. One of the ways that the ministry proposes to help them occurred back in July in 2021, where the ministry launched a small business health and safety training program geared specifically to employers with less than 15 workers. And it's focused in on helping small businesses improve their workplace health and safety by reimbursing eligible employers for the cost of training of their health and safety representatives over the next 3 years. So that's Prevention Works. And so we have 4 objectives there. And also within this strategy are not just objectives, but areas where the health and safety system as a whole has been identified where additional focus is needed. The first topic is occupational illnesses, which are quite prevalent still, and work-related mental health and workplace violence harassment. So based on an understanding of our feedback from the industries, our analysis of the trends, and our predictions on where things are going to go in the future, these are the 2 areas that the ministry understands that there's a real shift towards focusing on them. Next, we're going to look at critical injuries and fatalities. And I present you just some numbers in this section so you can kind of gain an understanding of, within the province of Ontario, where are the fatal and critical injuries taking place? What sector, what kind of numbers are we looking at? My role as a regional program coordinator is very heavily influenced by the statistics, the industry trends, and the numbers that we see. So I'm able to just disseminate some of that information for you for your own purposes. I've just broke down some of the critical injuries and fatalities that occurred through construction projects in Ontario. And what we see here when we look at fatalities is that 2017, 2018, there was a bit of a growth there, but in 2019, there was a dip in fatalities. In 2020 and 2021, there was an increase in fatalities by about 5. However, this year, and this data only captures up to June 30th, so it's about half the year, right? This year, what we're seeing is up to June 30th, only 9 fatalities. And if we just extend that logic to round out the year, we're sitting probably below 20 fatalities this year, which is a significant decline from what we were seeing during the rise of COVID, and puts us more back on track with where we were in 2019. Now, critical injuries remain high, and I'd like to just take a moment to to explain why. So a few years ago, there was an update to the definition of a critical injury, and it basically cast a wider net for what incidents or injuries are defined as critical. What it says is a critical injury is an injury of a serious nature that either A, places someone's life in jeopardy, B, produces unconsciousness, C, results in substantial loss of blood, D, involves the fracture of a leg or arm, but not a finger or toe, involves the amputation of a leg or arm, hand or foot, but not a finger or toe, consists of burns to a major portion of the body, or causes the loss of sight in an eye. So because of this change in the definition of critical injury, and now it casts a wider net, all of a sudden there are much more critical injuries being reported. And if we focus in specifically on involves a fracture of a leg or arm, but not a finger or toe, all of a sudden a broken ankle, a broken wrist is now a critical injury as defined by the legislation, and of a similar severity to somebody whose life was placed in jeopardy, who was unconscious from being struck in the head, who lost a substantial amount of blood. So because that net is wider, we're seeing a lot more critical injuries reported, and there's more of a spectrum in terms of the severity of critical injuries now than there was before. Okay, moving on to the industrial program. So there are more industrial workplaces than there are construction workplaces in Ontario, and as a result, of course, we do see that there are more fatalities and critical injuries occurring. And again, this data only captures up to June 30th. So what do we see with this trend? Unfortunately, what we see is things between 2017 and 2020 have been fairly stagnant. There hasn't been a push up or down in the number of incidents. In 2021, we see a moderate increase. And now we look at 2022, where there have been 27 fatalities for the first half of the year. And again, if we extend the logic, we're looking at 54 potentially fatalities this year. And I don't know that that's where it will land, but you can simply say that one half of the year, what you'll see is the same in the next half of the year. These trends are not good, obviously, in my opinion, and I would think the opinion of anyone else. And the same is true of the critical injuries. What we see in general is fairly consistent in 2017 through 2020, and then things start to uptake in 2021 and 2022. Now, where are these incidents occurring? So we're looking at construction sectors, and we're looking at just this year, just the fatalities this year. So we can see that in the commercial and building construction sector, one fatality associated with a fall. In highway and road construction, one fatality associated with being crushed. In industrial construction, one fall and one crushed. In institutional, a crushed. Railway construction, we had a struck by. Struck bys are typically referred to as being a mobile vehicle incident or being struck by a quickly moving object. In single family housing, one fall and one other. And in the not elsewhere covered sector, someone was crushed. And again, this is just up to June 30th of this year. When we move forward and we look at industrial, again, just for this year, just up to June 30th, in the agricultural services sector, two fatal incidents occurred. In primary metals, 2 people were crushed, 2 people were struck by objects. In transportation, 1 person was struck by an object. In the vehicle sales and service industry, 1 person was crushed, and there were 6 other fatalities. Now that's a high number, and it warrants dissection by the ministry to understand why this outlier reads so high. The view that the ministry takes on each individual incident, fatality, encompasses so much. We look at ages, we look at what sector they're in, geographically where they are, we look at training, we look at what was going on around them. There's a fulsome investigation and a fulsome collection of data associated with it. Moving forward, wood and metal fabrication, 1 fall to the death, 3 crushed incidents. 1 struck by, and 3 other fatalities. And then in the not elsewhere covered sector, 3 people were crushed, 1 person was struck by a piece of equipment, and 1 other fatality. Next, we're going to look at some court bulletins, just some recent court events stemming from investigations associated with the ministry and how those have turned out. So, court bulletins. These are information that the courts put out to provide information for everyone on recent enforcement activities and fines as a result of contraventions of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. In this year, a $60,000 fine was issued to an Ontario pharmaceutical company where a worker was directed to clean out a hopper for a dust collection system. The hopper essentially had a rotary valve with blades inside, and while the worker was cleaning it, not all the dust and debris was coming out. The worker used their hands to reach inside to clear the remaining debris, contrary to the company policy and training. The worker sustained injuries as a result, and the employer was fined $60,000. Essentially, there was a lockout tagout procedure that was not followed. The other court bulletin, worker fatality during electrical maintenance results in a $200,000 fine for Toronto Hydro. Now, in this instance, a worker suffered a fatal injury while performing work in an underground electrical vault. And to be concise and simple with this one, the worker was exposed to an energized conductor without making contact with it. Unfortunately, the tool the worker was carrying did make contact with it, and he received fatal injuries as a result. So what's the ministry really looking at? What are our inspectors doing right now? So all the sectors that I've described previously are looking at high-risk traumatic hazards. These are our struck-bys, our motor vehicle and mobile equipment hazards. There was an initiative that ran from April 1st to June 30th. All programs are also looking at healthy workers and healthy workplaces. So these are occupational diseases associated with silica, asbestos, and other long-term exposure type incidents. In construction inspectors are looking for asbestos on construction projects, and in industrial, their focus is on silica. The industrial program is also looking at the fall harvest strategy. So this is farms that employ temporary foreign agricultural workers, and they're looking at that up until November 30th. They're also looking at temporary help agencies where workers are supplied via temporary help agencies, and they're putting a critical eye on that. In terms of the training and health and safety information that those workers are receiving. They're also focusing on workplace violence and education and the material handling strategy, which revolves around hazards workers face in industrial establishments associated with moving heavy material. In construction, excavations and utility contacts. And finally, there's mental health in the workplace. So in this section, I'm going to show you a quick video provided by Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. I'm going to describe some of the resources that the health and safety landscape, the system partners have available for workers, for employers, for unions and committee members that are open and able to be reached by you at any time. The Occupational Health and Safety Act does not currently contemplate mental health injuries as an injury under the legislation, which means that it's very difficult for an enforcement agency to bring about the positive change that's needed with respect to mental health in the workplace. But one of the ways they do move that needle, so to speak, is by reaching out to the health and safety system partners that I mentioned previously. So Think Mental Health is a joint effort from all the health and safety system partners to provide workplaces with the resources to better understand and prevent mental health problems. Think Mental Health here is essentially a resource for people to gain further information on mental health. The Mental Injury Toolkit and Stress Assess. So this is done again by OCAL, my favorite acronym in government. The Mental Health Toolkit, it's for everyday workers who experience mental and physical effects from factors at work such as excessive demands, workplace bullying and harassment, threats of violence, lack of control, insecure work arrangements, and technological changes that interfere with their tasks. These pressures obviously take their toll on workers because they don't fit naturally into the traditional health and safety categories, such as like a chemical burn, a slip, a trip, a fall, or a broken bone. So in 2009, a group of unions joined with OCAL, the Occupational Health Clinic for Ontario Workers, and the University of Waterloo, and representatives of the Office of the Worker Advisor, another aspect of the ministry, and the Worker Health and Safety Center to create a toolkit to fill that gap. The toolkit includes the use of a stress assess tool. So this tool is something that workers and employers can use to identify how essentially stressful their workplace is, or the work that they're doing, and compare it to the national benchmark. Now, I took an assessment of myself using this tool, and I was surprised by the results of what I saw, actually. And I would encourage you all to go out to OCAL on their website and use the stress assess tool, not just for yourself, but for your work environment as well. Now, I have just a short video for you created by Workplace Safety and Prevention Services.
Workplace Safety and Prevention Services presents. Let's talk about psychologically healthy and safe workplaces. Hey there, Maggie. That's me. How's your day going? I have a question for you. Does your employer do things to ensure your physical and mental well-being at work? If so, you're one of the lucky ones. And congratulations, you're most likely working in a psychologically healthy and safe workplace. A psychologically healthy and safe workplace is one where every reasonable effort is made to promote mental health and prevent mental harm of its workers. Did you know nearly 7 million Canadians will experience a mental health problem in any given year? It's true. The total economic cost of mental illness in Canada is estimated at $50 billion. Wow, those numbers paint a scary picture. This means all workplaces are impacted by mental health and should be tasked with the psychological well-being of their workers. And yes, that means yours too. Gone are the years of employers taking the ostrich stance and hiding their heads in the sand. Employers can no longer ignore the psychological needs of their workers. Back in the day, employers were diligent in terms of health and safety if they made efforts to provide a physically safe workplace for their workers. Over the last decade or so, employers have had to broaden their definition of health and safety to include the psychological health and safety of their workers. This important shift recognizes not only an employer's legal responsibility in the duty of care for their workers, but the significant impact that mental health has on overall workplace performance and culture. As a result, the definition of health and safety is evolving to include mental health. A psychologically healthy and safe workplace is about more than just physically protecting workers. It is inclusive of an employee's mental and social well-being. Today, it's imperative that employers invest in workplace mental harm prevention. A recent study from Dwight Insights found that for every dollar invested in workplace mental health, a median yearly return is $1.62. This sounds like a win-win, don't you think? Cha-ching! Psychologically healthy and safe workplaces that protect the mental health of their workers are measurably more productive and profitable than those that are psychologically unsafe. So what does it mean to be a mentally healthy workplace? Flexible working hours, on-site support, meditation breaks? The truth is, for an organization to count itself as fostering a psychologically healthy and safe environment, employers need to start thinking about psychological hazards as a health and safety issue, the same way we think about physical hazards. The key is that we do this with mindfulness and carefulness. Everyone has a responsibility in contributing to a healthy and safe workplace, both physically and psychologically. This includes frontline workers, supervisors, managers, senior leadership, and of course, health and safety committees. After all, we're only as strong as our weakest link. Safeguarding an employee's mental health isn't just the right thing to do. It's essentially ensuring your organization will not only survive the future, but flourish in it. This has been a production of Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. WSPS offers a comprehensive approach to mental health and wellness initiatives in the workplace. Contact us for support today as you begin or continue your journey to a psychologically healthy and safe workplace at 1-877-494-9777.
That's our short video. Thanks very much. This is the Ministry of Labor website. I encourage you all to take it, to give it a visit, because you're going to find a lot of good information there on the blitzes that the ministry is running, our sector plans, our hazard alerts, more of those court bulletins, which are great information, interactive web tools, and our prosecution activity. This is the Ministry of Labor Health and Safety Contact Center to provide information on potential contraventions, to call in a complaint, to ask questions. You can reach us there at any time. As well, there's the Employment Standards Information Center for issues arising from the Employment Standards Act. This is not legal advice. The Ministry of Labor, we're an enforcement agency. We don't provide consultations or legal advice. The information that's contained in here shouldn't be taken in any way or shape or form as legal advice. If you do require legal advice in terms of your interpretation of the legislation, I would urge you to seek your counsel, your legal counsel, to do so. Thanks everyone for giving me the time to speak to you.